when pawns meet. It had been too long without any sign from Daniel or Subject 2, as they had been calling him. Usually, if they lost touch with a subject this long, it meant they were already gone. Usually, Dr. Rainger still had reason to hope that the crossover event had not happened yet. Subject 1 Ian was still being monitored, which means if he hadn't crossed over yet, then that could tell Daniel was still here, roaming the Celestial. Doctor, we've made contact with the subject, one of Dr. Rainger's subordinates said. Hey, good news, the doctor thought. Oh, Dr. Rainger said. Yes, well of a sort. The smile on the technician faded, as he wasn't sure he had the good news the doctor wanted after all. Pinching the bridge of his nose, Dr. Rainger rose to meet the foolish tech that dared to raise his spirits to only deflate them. Now be careful what you say next. Your future depends on it. The tech stood upright before continuing. Well, what I mean is we've located Echo 1, sir. She apparently survived, but according to her suit's parameter centers state that she's not alone. It does appear that she has made contact with Subject 2, sir. Rainger smiled at his excellent fortune. He usually would hate that his experiment had been tampered with, but with hopes of witnessing a crossover event, he could let a little interference slide. Besides, he knows Echo 1 must have had little choice in the matter, and since interference had already transpired, what could it hurt to take it a step further? Moving to the technician's workstation, he looked over the sensor logs on the monitor. So we're reasonably sure we can locate Subject 2 then? Yes, so long as he stays near Echo 1, we should be able to maintain a location, the technician said, trying to hide his nerves. And we still have a location for Subject 1. Yes, he's a few kilometers away. It appears he's looking for Subject 2 as well. Good, the doctor said, pressing a button on the control desk and positioning himself over a microphone that was stationed on the desk. This is Dr. Rainger. Have a team ready in 10 minutes. Wait for my instructions before entering the Celestial. Affirmative, the reply came. You're sending a team? Now? The technician asked. No, I'm accompanying them. If I've learned anything from this, it's that I can't leave anything to chance. Back to the meadows. I'm going to kill him. After Daniel said the words, he turned to Echo. After everything she told him and what he just experienced for himself, thanks to the strange whims of the Celestial, he wanted to see what her reaction would be to him now. Would she try to stop him? However, he couldn't read her well enough to know either way. She didn't look like she would counter him in any way. At least, that was his guess. You have nothing to say about that, said Daniel. Her suit emitted a noise. She looked at a flashing light on her arm. No, I suppose that fits. Considering all he put you through, it only tracks that you would have that mindset. Oh, and you wouldn't, Daniel yelled. Echo could see the clenched fist combined with Daniel's startling glare. She looked him over and realized that he had changed. Was it only a matter of time? Was the doctor right all along? She wasn't sure what the outcome of this would be, but she hoped that it would be somehow different from what was predicted. It doesn't matter what I would or wouldn't do. It's not my test. I'm not the one being examined. I told you why. She looked elsewhere as if waiting for something. Because you don't feel like everyone else, that's what you said, right? It was confusing, and the whole situation made little sense. But for the moment, it was Echo that made the least amount. You said you didn't share anything personal with your team. That's why you were left behind this whole time. But since we got here, you shared plenty. Not entirely personal, but seeing where we are. And you know the dangers more than anyone that has stepped foot in here. Why would you risk it? Because she is tired. A powerful voice echoed through the mist, the moonlight catching the gleam of Dr. Rainger's glasses. Although much of him was still obscured by the mist itself, Daniel could still see the smile. Behind the doctor's glee were others dressed as Echo was. The lights from their suits pierced the fog more than their actual bodies. There was no telling how many there were, but that didn't matter much to Daniel. It was who they brought with them. He could barely make out the silhouette of the tall frame, but he knew. The doctor clasped his hands together. "Oh, my dear boy, I can't express how happy I am to see you. You have no idea what this means to me." "I have an idea. Is that why you brought Ian? So you wouldn't miss the Celestial before it does whatever it does?" Dr. Ranger's smile widened, and his eyes darted over to Echo. "Ah, so you two have been getting better acquainted. How adorable, but it does save me time. My dear boy, I assume she told you everything, or was close to it anyway. In any case, you have the fortune to contribute to science." He motioned to his men and two came forward, with Ian being held in between. The fog still obscured his face, but Daniel could imagine that he too must be smiling. He's evil, Daniel thought. Everyone here is evil. You and Subject 1 here, well for this process anyway. Is this a joke to you? Are we just rats in a maze to you? Daniel said angrily. Yes, you are. Dr. Rainger said he was very blunt about the situation. But you shouldn't take that as an insult, Daniel. Most go through life not contributing much of anything to the betterment of mankind and what they can truly accomplish. But now your life can truly have meaning. Flashes of his life began to drift through his mind. The first time they met, their first date, the day of his wedding. The more he remembered, the angrier he became. Are you saying that before, while I still had a life, when I had Jennifer, my life was meaningless? What about love? A fairy tale made for children. I deal with reality, and the truth is that knowledge is the only thing worth acquiring. But please indulge your anger. Look at the man who took your beloved wife from you. Doesn't it make you ache that he's still here, but she's not? The rise and fall of Daniel's chest made his eyes water. His body shook uncontrollably. He hated everything about this moment, but at the same time, he couldn't escape it. Before he realized what he was doing, he was already halfway to Ian, still held tight by the two soldiers. Daniel, don't. You don't have to do this. Echo's words were so distant from him that Daniel had forgotten she had been with him the whole time. Then give me one good reason why I shouldn't, Daniel shouted, and a tear rolled down his face, although he couldn't understand why. Because it's what he wants. If you kill him, then you might be lost, just like the others. You won't come back. Yeah, and what makes you think I want to be here in the first place? You know enough about me to know that I have already tried to end it. And as far as giving the doctor what he wants, he can rot, but at the same time, I don't care about him. Or you. I only care about making things right for my wife. You mean for yourself? She snapped back. And why not? He yelled. Why shouldn't I do what's best for me? Leave him be Echo, in fact. At the snap of his fingers, the rest of the armored men surrounded them. The pattern of flashing lights was the only thing that shined through the mist. Two of them came to both sides and grabbed Echo. She struggled for a moment, but gave up quickly as she could see that she was drastically overpowered. Honestly, you're not helping the situation progress any further, so it's best if you were to be quiet. Is that a threat, Doctor? Does that mean that I am no longer of interest to you like these two men? Even if you do witness an event, what will gain you? My dear Echo, you were of interest to me. You were the control, one that never got emotionally attached because it's something that you could never do. Even when you were with Daniel, you tried to forge a connection, right? And how did that work out? Now, as for what I gained, knowledge and power, I hate to repeat myself. Dr. Rainger moved toward Daniel while removing something from his jacket pocket grabbing Daniel's hand and placing something cold into his hands. "Now you must remember that I am on your side. It's true. I'm giving you what you want. You will never achieve this result in the real world, but here it's different. Take your vengeance." Rainger stepped to the side and made a gesture to Ian. Daniel looked down and gripped tighter around the handle of the blade Dr. Rainger gave him. He looked over to Ian and saw a smile. "What do you have to smile about, you monster? Aren't you going to beg me not to kill you?" Ian's lack of fear unnerved him. How was it that the one being held captive waiting to die wasn't afraid or could even smile? But Ian's face changed from a smile to bewilderment when he asked his question. "Danny, why would I do such a thing? We're friends, aren't we?" With that, the eerie smile returned. "I knew we were connected. That's why I had the doc bring me to you." A raised eyebrow from Dr. Rainger and a few mild touches of laughter from Dr. Ranger's men only heightened Daniel's tension. Ian's grin only grew larger, but his eyes never broke contact with Daniel's. "See, I have a confession to make. We're all going to die.